All right, so Jacob here is a really good storyteller, and he is very knowledgeable. So he is going to tell us how Toledo University became the Toledo Rockets.
So with me being the expert I am, the biggest thing you kind of have to know is that whatever you thought it was, completely wrong. I have the truth. So back in 1920, right? And this works really well because I just had a friend that committed to Kent State. So Kent State is super known for their science department, right? Big thing they really focused on back in the 1900s was rocket science, right? And they were like, out of the MAC conference in that area, they were like, we've got to be the first college to, launch a rocket. And their main goal was space, right? We want to get to space. And so their first test run, they had it lined up. They had all the coordinates ready to go. And they were looking up and they were like, all right, this is the one. And then they had all the tests. They were all ready to go and they launched it. And then there was a rookie on the job. All right. Oh. He was supposed to keep the navigation, like the steering just focused. And then all of a sudden something failed and it just was just going down. And they were like, we don't know what to do because it was already too high in the air. And so as it's going down, it lands, just crashes right to where the University of Toledo is right now.
Right.
And so the first people to discover it were the local Toledoans that were there, that were just discovering this local city. And then they were like, how'd this rocket come to be and whatnot? And they were like, this has to be a sign. And like, they looked up to the heavens and they're like, all right, go ahead. And so they said, all right, we're going to leave this here. We got to figure out what's the deal. And we'll just come back. So then the next week went by and they claim, and trust me, I know what I'm talking about. They claim that God came down and called them and said, a college needs to be built here. And so they got to work right away, like no break. And they just built this college. And they were like, at that point, they were like, all right, well, we're in Toledo, so we might as well call it Toledo. And they were like, but what do we name it? And then the dude was like, a rocket? And they were like,
Oh my God.
Wow.
So in 1920,
I never knew that story.
That was beautiful.
Amazing.
Well, that's
All right.
interesting.
I do.
Let's roll the intro.
The more you know.
Welcome to QuaranTEEN. My name is Lauren.
I'm Athena.
And I'm Father David Kidd, and joining us is a senior from Central Catholic High School, Jacob Peters, a three-time district champion in soccer, who just committed to Lourdes University to play soccer there.
That's right.
Congratulations.
And is also one of our co-directors, co-presidents, really, for our prayer group at Central Catholic under our spiritual commission. Yeah. So it's great to be, and thank you for being here with us.
Me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Hey, I got some sweet ads to share with you. Advertisements, that is. And one of them that I like to share with you is really good, and it's called the AWAKEN app. If you haven't gotten this on your phone, you need to do it. I've gotten it already, and it's pretty sweet. So it's called the awakenapp.io. That's where you can get it, not on your normal app purchase spot, but through the awakenapp.io. And our next ad that I want to share with you, which is really cool, is called the AWAKEN Nation, media and events bringing people to truth through beauty. AWAKENCatholic.org/donate. Great way to support what we're doing here. And one more thing is called Hallow, which is a Catholic meditation app to help you find peace and grow in your spiritual journey. And you can find that at hallow.app/awaken. How was that?
That was beautiful.
That was great.
You can't make that up.
I mean, you can't.
Lauren, what are we talking
could.
about
I guess you
today?
could.
I don't have the skill I do, but we'll
All
get
right.
there.
So today we are talking about faith over fear. And I think this is something that we see a lot of times on t-shirts, stickers, just apparel in general. Like we just see faith over fear. The line goes like faith over fear.
Where do you shop at?
I don't know. I see it on Catholic stores.
You don't
Catholic
see it.
stores in
Apparently,
Toledo.
Father does not go into Catholic stores. I'm a little concerned.
That's
I
where
don't
I get
know.
my clerics, is from the Catholic stores.
I don't know.
Check the stickers.
All right, I'll check the stickers.
But so I think after seeing it all the time, we kind of want to dive into it a little more and talk about like the deeper meaning behind what that actually means.
Yeah, I think it's really easy. And people will say this all the time, like, have faith, have faith. Like the Lord will provide, have faith. But it's really hard to actually put that into play because a lot of the time you're like, how do I do that? Like, I would love to do that. How do I do it? And in reality right now, like, anxieties and fears are at like an all-time high for everybody, no matter the age. And I think it's even harder now to be like, no, just believe and like have faith in the Lord. And, you know, here you're sitting there and you're like, what? I'm like, you know, shaking with anxiety. I don't know how to like function. And you're telling me just to believe. And I think that's really hard.
Things just can consume you so quickly. And I think like a lot of other things in our life, like faith can just get put to the back burner. That's kind of like the first thing that seems to go a lot of the times. And
The back burner. The back burner often goes out.
Yes.
As soon as.
Yeah, you forget about the things back there.
I always leave mine on. That's the problem.
See, what's nice is I don't have to deal with that.
That's true.
Not yet.
Not yet. You will.
Yeah, we'll see.
But yeah,
Oh,
I
gosh.
just think that it's very easy with so many things coming at you, with so many just difficulties and so many things that you just aren't sure about in the world right now. Like, those just consume you right off the bat. And it's really hard to, you know, kickstart your faith sometimes.
Well, and I think it's hard for us, and we forget that like we are allowed to question the Lord. In fact, he kind of encourages us to question him, right? Because he wants us to find out what it is he has planned for us. So when we just are doing things blindly and we're going through the motions and we're like, yes, okay, the Lord must be telling me to do this, so I'm just going to do it. And we're not questioning anything. We're not growing in our relationship with him. And it's become almost just like the motions and like, this is what you're called to do. And one of my favorite stories is that story of Gideon and how like he 100%, the Lord like calls him out, and it's not the story of like Gideon's like, I'm going to rise and I'm going to be this awesome leader. He like hides from the Lord. Okay. Like legit hides. And then when the Lord's like, no, for real, it's me. And Gideon like knows in his heart, this has to be God. He still doesn't believe, like he's still not like, this is okay, I'm going to do this now. He in fact tests the Lord, and he's like, here's 2 different things I need you to do to prove to me that you're actually God, right? And never once is the Lord like, okay, nope, I'll find someone else. This is too much. Like he proves and proves and proves. And then like, even so, Gideon keeps going through, and everything that the Lord is asking him, he's like, I don't know, right? Like he gets all this huge army and he's ready to go into battle. And the Lord's like, yeah, we're going to take like a third of that. And you're just going to take just these people.
Yeah.
And like Gideon's still not ready. He asked Gideon to destroy an altar for a false god. Gideon's super afraid, even though he knows the Lord is calling him to do this. So he does it at night when nobody can see. Like, so I think for us, we tend to think that, I don't know, if we question the Lord, he's going to give up on us, or like we don't question it and we let fear kind of take over because we're not good enough, right? Like that's our biggest thing, is we're never good enough. But if we look at these stories in the Bible, in our saints' lives, none of them were good enough. None of them. I mean, Gideon, like the first time the Lord talks to him and he knows 100% it's the Lord, he is hiding in a wine press. Like he's like, please do not call me out.
Not
like,
here.
Please.
Not here.
Yeah.
Getting
And like
here. No.
even when he's ready to go to battle and he's like, okay. And the Lord's like, yep, I can tell in your heart you're still not ready. Why don't you go down and listen to what they have to say? And he has to hear the other army basically say like, hey, I know Gideon's gonna triumph. And then he's like 100% in. And I think we tend, instead of being like Gideon and testing the Lord and saying like, okay, all right, if this is what I'm supposed to do, prove it to me. Or being open, like, hey, I'm afraid. We shut down and we go through the motions, but we don't want to sit there and actually have those hard conversations with God.
Yeah. Do you think like Gideon was, if he was texting with God, he'd just ghost God? You just go and be like, no.
I feel like
He'd be
he
like,
would.
who do you say that I am? And he'd be like,
Probably.
But in the beginning, I feel like he
nothing.
would.
Nothing. It's like
Because,
3
like-
hours later. Hello,
red.
you still there?
Put 'em on
Nothing.
red.
But like in the beginning, I really think so. Like that's like the modern day version of hiding in a wine press. I would think. I don't know.
Sort of,
I don't really know what a wine press is, but
Another
Press his
thing,
wine.
Another thing that you said that we sometimes may think that God is giving up on us. A story that I think of when I think about faith over fear is Jesus walking on water. And so he's walking on water, right? Just casually. And
I've heard about this.
and he calls Peter to follow him. Yeah. And Peter's, he's going his way on the water, and then he starts to sink. And he is calling out. He's like, Lord, Lord, help me.
Right.
And like he was thinking in that moment that God was giving up on him, like he wasn't saving him. And in that moment, that's when fear overcame his faith. And I also like, as it keeps going, I love when it says in the Bible, and it says it so many times too, "Oh, you of little faith."
Yeah.
And I think that hits so hard, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
When you think of that, because I'm like, man, the amount of times that I can think in my life day to day, honestly, when I can just like hear God saying, or like he would have said that to me, like, "Oh, you have little faith."
And how much fear dominates too, right? Like I think it's like you were saying too with Peter, and of course trying to get onto the water, and immediately the winds pick up, and he's like, "I don't know about this."
Yeah.
And it's like, Jesus, like, why'd you stop? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And it reminds me too of Jacob. And I didn't know if you wanted to share a little bit about kind of your own challenges of fears and thinking about college
Yeah.
a little bit, and then how, still that constancy of your faith kind of
Right.
guiding you through that
So
decision.
so definitely from a high school aspect, fear is just a big thing in our lives. And I think, it comes with the stress of school that we have, our athletics. And I mean, honestly, a big thing comes down is like popularity and how you feel about, or how others feel about you. And I just think stuff like that takes over your lives. And then as a senior, a big thing that I've been stressed about is college. Like you said, committing to Lord's was a huge decision for me. A lot of colleges were looking at me, and like I was torn between two. And then in the end, I was more of like, where will I feel at home, and where will I feel I'll grow the most in my faith? And like you said, going to Lord's, it's such a blessing to go there. They're super strong in the faith there, and I almost felt so home when I was there visiting. And it's just the big thing with the college is like you worry about how you're going to be when you go there. And I mean, becoming a freshman again, it's like, that fear's in your mind of a typical freshman. And I think through the whole process, it's that simple phrase of let go and let God. And like, when I was at Lord's and visiting there, anyone that you crossed by, you could tell like who was a student athlete, who was there going to class, they're all greeting you with a smile on their face. And it's like, you soon realize like the fear is all in your head. And when you're there, it's like, everyone's sitting there and they're just giving you so much love that you feel so at home. Like I walked away from my visit going to Lord saying like, this is home.
Yeah.
And I think the big thing is just letting go and understanding like there's no greater plan than God's. And when you start to put like your judgment in front of his, that's when it becomes a big problem.
Right.
So yeah.
Is there something specific like in your faith that you've been able to like put into practice? Because I know you say let go and let God, but like how does that look in your life?
There's so many aspects of it. I feel it's also kind of standing up for what I truly believe. I feel like there's so much, not only in my life, but just in this world of so many sided opinions and like where people stand and whatnot. And like the biggest thing I like to emphasize is how our society is today. And I feel like there's so many aspects to where society is telling you to do this, and it's mostly not the right way to go.
Yeah.
And, you kind of have to put that fear aside and be like, okay, if I go the way that I know God wants us to, like, how are others going to see me? And it's like, I would almost rather lose those friendships and relationships that I had than break that relationship down with God. And it's just, that's something so huge for me.
And I think and I've seen you do this before, is one of the things where people often will ask for our prayers. People ask, hey, will you pray for me?
Yeah.
And kind of to push back against sometimes that fear, you're like, okay, I'll pray for it later. And like in that moment, right? Like we say, okay, let's pray right now. And it's so disarming, but I think it removes the fear and the hesitation of what is to come. Yeah. Say, but right now we're going to put it in God's hands. And that's a real trust. I think that's one of those things when we talk about with faith that we really need is that trust. And that trust builds up over time, right? It's never just like one moment. And I think St. John Henry Newman from England talks about this. And he talks about it in the sense of, he calls it the Illiterative Sense, meaning it's never just like one thing that, oops, I lost my mic here. Never just one thing, but it's accumulation of things over time, right? That point us to our faith in God. And that really is sound evidence. And it's not just evidence like facts and figures, but experiences where we've come to encounter God And if we know that God has been with us now, why would he abandon us anytime in the future? Because he's been faithful every moment leading us to. So
And I think going off what you said about like when people ask for prayers, that was something I struggle with all the time. Prayer's always been something I've always struggled with, of keeping that consistent and keeping it like present in my life. And like the first step I took was like when people are like, hey, can you pray for me? You know, a lot of the times I was like, yeah, sure. Like I'll do it when I, pray tonight. And then it's like,
If you remember.
yeah, and then you don't even pray that night.
Before
And
you
you're
fall
like,
asleep.
great,
Yeah.
right. You're just closing your eyes,
Right.
like falling asleep. But I think that moment of like, yeah, let me start praying. And then I do the sign of cross in front of them. And they're like, oh, like I should do it too. And it's just like, it's almost such a heartwarming feeling, because it's like, you feel it, and it's like when it's fresh in your mind, and it's just, it's a great feeling. And it's just something I encourage everyone to do.
that's so good.
That's awesome. That's really awesome, because I know people that are adults that still feel really weird praying out loud in person with people. But I think, going back to the story of Peter, I think that's the perfect example of when we let our fears take over. That is when we truly do feel like we aren't good enough and we can't handle what God is giving us. But not that it's easy, but I think God always gives us exactly what we need.
Right.
And sometimes it's like a huge struggle that sucks really, really hard.
Yeah.
But it's exactly what we need in that moment, and we don't see it. And then we tend to think that's God saying like, well, you're just going to do your thing over there, and like I'm going to let you just kind of hang out, and I'll come back to you later because I'm too busy. When realistically, he's right there with you, and he's just asking that you trust in his process, which makes no sense to us most of the time, and we feel so alone. But like he is literally sitting with us, holding our hand, just like begging us just to trust. And I think Peter's example is a great one, just that like the moment that we start to doubt and we let like our insecurities and just our human nature to take over, that is when 100% I can promise you that you will not succeed in whatever you're doing, because you no longer are trusting in what the Lord wants for you, and you are dwelling on the insecurities that he created in you for a reason.
Yeah, I find that often because I'll get nervous about like whether it's a homily or maybe you're preparing for a parish event or a school event, and I'll get nervous. Who would have thought? Get nervous, right? But one of the great gifts of that is like it causes me to get really prepared, right? And so, whether it's just checking to make sure the schedule's all set, or following up with people, but that little insecurity, that fear, allowed me then actually to succeed and do even better, right? Which is a little gift there, I think, from God. And the faith too, right? Like faith is a gift from God, but it's also our response to what God has given us. And so faith hopefully is strengthened. And I think we see that on a daily basis with people that God has put in our lives, It could be our parents, it could be our coaches, it could be our teachers, could be that friend that just says, hey, what were you thinking? And that is exactly what you needed to hear in that moment, even though you didn't want to hear that in that moment. And that too is a gift. And I think that should, reinforce in us that God is present. I had a number of conversations with people where, you're talking and they'll be like, I just don't know if God's even there, like if he even cares. And I'm just like, you're like talking to a priest right now. Like, you mean like you don't think God's present or here or cares? And I'm just like, I'm right here with you.
Right.
And so is he,
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think, Jacob, that was like the praying is so important. And we've talked about this before when we just don't feel it and we're going through the motions. Sometimes that is beneficial, because I know like for me last week, I had a cold all week. I was not ready for Life Teen on Sunday. I had done all the motions. I wrote my talk. I didn't love it. I was ready to go. And I sat in Mass and I was like, I should really pray about this. And literally the entire Mass, the Holy Spirit was telling me not to read what I wrote on that paper. And it wasn't really telling me anything else. And I was like, okay. And so like when all the teens are eating dinner, I go downstairs and I'm getting ready and I'm like, all right, Lord, like for real, you got to take control then, because apparently what I did is not what they're supposed to hear tonight. And it was beautiful. The things that I couldn't tell you what I said, but there were things that just kind of fell out of my mouth and I was like, wow, that was way better than what I wrote on that paper. And part of that is that kind of insecurity and that fear. Like I was like, oh, I'm not ready for this. And I wasn't asking God to change what I wrote. I was not prepared for that. But it was asking God to be with me, because I didn't feel like I was ready. I was still sniffly and trying to breathe through a mask that way and not get too close to teens and spread my cold germs. So like for me, that was my prayer, is just like, all right, Lord, just be present with me. And he completely flipped it. And me having that faith where I was like, all right, apparently what you have to say is better. I didn't even like what I wrote that much. So like, let's go with it. And it was beautiful. And I think 100%, the night would not have gone how it went if I wasn't open to the Lord taking control.
Well said. Yeah. Well said. And, that kind of wraps us up today. And just again, wanted to share with you a few of our sponsors and great ways that we can continue to support the good work we're doing here. One of those is the AWAKEN app, which you can find at theawakenapp.io, which has got awesome video, audio, podcasts, talks, music, prayer, community, and all of these awesome people. We also have another one of these cool sponsors that we'd like to tell you about, and that's AWAKEN Nation. Great way really to bring to people the truth of God through beauty, which you can find at awakencatholic.org/donate. Great way to support the work we're doing here by donating to that. And then lastly, we got the Hallow app, hallow.app/awaken. Great way to continue to really persevere in your faith and practice your faith, not just preach it, but live it out.
I like that little Hallow thing. Can you do it one more time?
Hello.
Yeah. That's Father's favorite part of this, just so you guys know. Well, thank you, Jacob, for being here with us.
Thank you
guys
so much.
It's been awesome.
Good having you.
Yeah.
Don't forget, faith over fear.
Laters.
This show and all media on AWAKEN Catholic is made possible by the AWAKEN Nation and the Hallow app. The AWAKEN Nation is a community of people like you who support all things AWAKEN for as cheap as a cup of coffee a week and get access to exclusive content. Learn more by visiting awakencatholic.org/donate. Hallow is the only audio-guided Catholic prayer app focused on contemplative prayer and traditional Catholic meditation such as Lectio Divina, Daily Examen, and the Rosary. We here at AWAKEN all use Hallow every day and love it. To learn more or give it a try, visit hallow.app/awaken.